This is the task management system that you have been searching for. It's why you clicked on this video. Just like me, you are a super busy teacher that has so many different tasks coming in all the time, and this super simple system is going to help you decide what is the most important things that you need to get done and actually do them, and then eliminate all of that unnecessary stuff. Now, this system breaks up tasks into 4 major categories, which I'm going to put in quadrants. You've got the do now, you've got the do later, you've got the delegate, and you've got the delete tasks. Now, in this video, as we go through, I'm going to show you how to know which tasks to put where, and this is going to streamline your entire to-do list system. Now, just like you, I'm an extremely busy teacher. I coordinate 2 subjects, I teach another 3, so I'm a full-time teacher. I write lessons, write assessment, have to do marking, reporting, all the administrative tasks, not to mention talking to parents. Like, you get it, by the way. I understand that you get it. But the reason I'm telling you this is earlier this year, I came into the staff room, like 20 minutes before the bell for first class. And one of my colleagues says to me, he goes, "Mark, how do you always seem like you're so calm and that you've got nothing to do and you're so prepared, not stressed, not anxious? How do you do that?" And after he asked me, I kind of thought for a second and just gave a pretty generic, cliche answer of, I do a lot of my work at home, so it's kind of done before I have to come in, or I'll stay late in the afternoon when no one else is really here. And so when it comes to the morning, when everyone else is getting their work done for the day, I've kind of already done it, or something along those lines. And while that's true, it's not really answering the deeper question of how do I stay calm, relaxed, and organized without seeming like I'm doing it. And it wasn't for a couple of weeks when I pondered this question a bit deeper, and I realized that the reason why I seem so calm and so stress-free in my job is because I apply this system, even if it's just subconsciously, to everything that I do with regard to teaching. I am constantly referencing this system in the back of my mind when it comes to categorizing and prioritizing tasks, and when you learn to do that as well, is going to be a game changer for you as a teacher. Now, this system's technically called the Eisenhower matrix, or the Eisenhower method of prioritizing tasks. And it is named after US President Dwight Eisenhower, who was notorious for being super productive and super well organized. But for simplicity, I'm going to call it the 4D system, which refers to the Ds in each of the quadrants. And essentially, these quadrants are created by breaking tasks into 2 major categories, right? We're going to categorize tasks by their importance and their urgency. Now, of course, importance and urgency is going to be a sliding scale. 2 tasks can be important and one can be more important than the other, right? There's a sliding scale there, same with urgency. But again, for simplicity, so you can apply this rapidly in your life, we are going to break tasks into either important or not important, and also urgent or not urgent. Okay, so let's look at these quadrants one by one and talk about what kind of tasks should go into each of them. So first, we're going to look at our do now quadrant. And these are going to be our tasks which are both urgent, so they need to be done soon, but also they are important. That should be a no-brainer. Any task that is both important and urgent, we should be doing immediately. Now, for me, those are generic things in teaching. Things like marking, right? When you've got a deadline coming up, you've got to get the marking done. Similarly, we've got our reporting that we need to do. Those are usually deadlines, and they are also extremely important tasks that we have to get done. Another one which comes up is contacting parents, especially about emergency type things. So things like if a student has hurt themselves at school, or if there are any behavior issues I have with them, I'd like to contact the parents kind of immediately to knock that one over. Anything like that, I really want to get that done as soon as possible, and it's a very important thing to do. So these are the most essential tasks, and even though usually they're the easiest to identify, which is really great, sometimes we lump tasks in here that are either not urgent, so they don't have to be done now, or really they're not important, which are what the other quadrants are for. So let's look at one of those quadrants now, the do later quadrant. So our do later quadrant, the blue one here, are tasks which are important, so they're still going to be in the top row, but they are not urgent, right? Hence the later aspect of the do later segment. So the non-urgent tasks that I consider that we kind of need to get done, but not in a time-bound manner, are things like lesson planning. So lesson planning, I can kind of do whenever I want, as long as it's like not the next lesson that I'm about to teach kind of vibes. I'm talking like if I'm planning for the rest of the week or if I'm planning for next week's lessons, I don't have to do that right now, but it is important that I do get it done at some point. Now, I'd just like to also acknowledge that some of the things that I put in here you may not agree with, and that's totally fine. These are very personal tasks to you. You might feel like lesson planning is a super big priority for you, especially if you're like a beginning teacher, which if you are, make sure you write a comment down below. Let us know if you're a beginning teacher. I love to hear from you, where you're teaching, what you're teaching. Make sure you leave a comment. But if you are a beginning teacher, probably you might consider lesson planning an urgent task, especially when you don't have some of these other ones like marking and reporting. And if that's the case, that's totally fine. These are just examples that I'm using right now to kind of contextualize these quadrants. Now, another example of a task which is important but not super urgent is responding to some emails. An example of the type of email that I would consider super important but not very urgent to respond to, and this is an example from last week and regularly actually at my school, is our deans, who are kind of like head of year, they often ask us to nominate students for Student of the Week, students who should be acknowledged for their hard work or their responsible relationships or how they conduct themselves in the playground, those sorts of things. I think it's really important to acknowledge those students, but if you start lumping these tasks in as your urgent tasks, that's where your to-do list is going to fill up and feel very overwhelming. These are the sorts of tasks that you should acknowledge are important, but just delay and schedule them for another time, right? A do later kind of task. And the last one I want to talk about here is LMS course design. So LMS course design, what I mean by that is wherever you're setting up all of your resources for your courses, if you're a course coordinator, this will make a lot more sense. Learning management system is what LMS stands for, by the way. But essentially, where you structure and organize your course, sometimes designing that can be quite time consuming, and it's not always that urgent. Right? If a student can't find something, they can just email their teacher. They can just ask a friend. It's not super urgent, which is the point of putting it in the do later section. Obviously, we'll want to make that course and design it at some point, but it can get put into a scheduling thing down the line. Next up, we've got the quadrant of tasks that we are going to be delegating to other staff members, or we're going to be delegating to AI software that can do like automation for us. Anything that we don't have to do ourselves or that we don't personally find that important are going to go in here. And by that, I mean they are urgent, but they are not at all important. At the very least, not important for us to be doing. Now, this might be controversial, but I'm going to be putting in here and talking about a lot of tasks that you might find important. And the key part of this system and what makes me feel so stress-free when it comes to like prioritizing my tasks is that I make a very clear distinction in my mind of what's important that I get done and what's an important task. Okay, those are two very different things, right? When it comes to marking and reporting, not only are they important tasks, but it's important that I do it, right? Otherwise, it's obviously not going to be authentic. It doesn't make sense for me to get some other teacher to mark my class, even though that would be lovely. I would never do it. Now, these tasks, things like responding to emails and delegating that task to someone who's more appropriate to deal with it, right? So responding to some emails. I'm just going to write responding to emails. A lot of the time, we get emails and the task assigned to us, or that it's implied that it's assigned to us, can feel super urgent, and we drop everything and we start doing it. But we have to recognize when one of those tasks is not important for us to do with it, and get the skill and get comfortable delegating it to other people. Now, an example of this is I recently attended the EduTech conference. There's a link on the screen if you want to follow along with my experiences at EduTech. It was really amazing. But I went with a couple of colleagues, one who was one of the IT guys at our school, and the other one who was kind of like the head of digital curriculum at my school. Now, when we were at EduTech, we signed up for a lot of things. We expressed our interest in a lot of products and services. And since coming back in the last couple of months, I've received email after email after email following up, providing information about these resources and these services. And I could easily get bogged down in responding to these people or investigating, but it really isn't my job. as a school teacher. Even though I am super interested in IT and technology, it's not really my job. And so all of those emails, I'm just forwarding off to our digital curriculum guy who is really, it is his job to deal with those things. So that's an example of a task that comes in. It feels urgent because we can capitalize on this right now, but it's not my important task to do. And so I can delegate it to someone else. In a similar vein, directing a question to someone else is a really important skill to start doing as a teacher. Often you'll get a question from a student or a parent or another teacher, and because it's being directed at you, you'll feel responsible for responding to it. But in a lot of cases, either because it's not your responsibility straight up, or you're not the best person to answer that question, you shouldn't feel obliged to actually answer the question or dig deeper and try and find answers for that person. Instead, you should be delegating to the person who is best equipped to respond to that question. So if you get a question from a parent and really the best person to respond to that is your head of department, forward that question to the head of department. If you get a question from a student about content or a topic that you know for a fact someone else in your department is better equipped to deal with, or they're more experienced, or they're just more knowledgeable or passionate, feel free to direct that student to that teacher. It's a very important skill to be able to start delegating like that. It's going to free up a lot of time for your more important and urgent tasks that you actually have to complete. And don't feel guilty about doing this, right? A lot of the time, the person that you're delegating to, it's their job to deal with that thing. Often, the tasks that we give ourselves and we commit time to, it's actually not our job. It's not important for us to deal with that task, even though it is an important task. So get in the habit of delegating to other people where necessary. And another example, and this is my personal placement of this task, is marking homework. Now, I know for a fact this is going to be a controversial one, because marking homework has a very important role in students getting feedback about how they're going. And again, I'm not saying that the task of marking homework is not important. I'm saying it's not important that I do it. So my recommendation for this sort of task is to get the students to cross-mark each other's homework. You can say at the very start of the lesson, before they even come in, guys, when you come on in, get out your homework, pass it to the person next to you, and you can find the answers to the homework on your OneNote, or you can find the answers to the homework at the front of the class, or whatever it is. And while they're marking each other's homework, you can do all your administrative tasks like marking the roll, checking if any students are away, all that sort of thing. You can do while they're marking their homework. It's kind of two birds, one stone. And again, it's an important task, but it's not necessarily important for you to be doing. Alrighty, and last but not least is our delete quadrant. This is the fourth D and arguably the most important to get comfortable dealing with. As you can see, it is in the not important but also not urgent quadrant, and these are tasks that you really shouldn't ever be doing unless you have literally nothing else to do, in which case you're probably missing something you should be doing. Now, some of these tasks can include things like reading unimportant, and I'm going to underline this word, unimportant emails. We've all got them before, and we've spent minutes and minutes and minutes reading through these emails, thinking about whether we respond. Guys, if you get these emails and you can check with a very cursory glance, you can look through the headings, you can look through the subject, you can look at the email and go, you know what, this is not important for me. It's certainly not urgent. Just delete the task. Delete that email or archive that email, get it out of your inbox and get it out of your head, because it's a waste of time looking and committing more resources mentally and physically to that task. Now, another big one that I know that in the past I've been guilty of and am slowly removing this sort of task from my day-to-day teaching life is life admin. Now, I'm not saying all life admin like doctor's appointments or organizing birthday parties or contacting your bank to deal with like a fraud account. I'm not saying any of that's not important and not urgent, but in the context of your teaching tasks, they really aren't. If you have urgent life administrative tasks to do, obviously you can do them, but it is really important to acknowledge when those tasks are truly urgent and when they can just wait for the afternoon. Right? If you're at school and you're on a spare period and you've got some really important school tasks to do, some urgent school tasks to do, some of your do nows or do laters, you should really be focusing on them and only doing life admin in an absolutely like emergency kind of case, right? So something like if you indeed did get a bank fraud and you're worried about someone's got your credit card details, yeah, maybe you call your bank. But if it comes to organizing your grocery list, even though that's a really important thing for your life, in the context of your teaching life, it's super unimportant, it's super not urgent, and that should go in the delete section of your tasks. Okay, and the last one I've already written on there because it's quite a long one and I can't talk while I'm writing it. I don't have the mental capacity to do two things at the same time. But the last one there is responding to student queries in detail. That's the important note there, in detail. I have been guilty in the past. I'm sitting there on a spare period. I'm getting some really important work done and an email comes in and I get notified of a student's question. They ask a question about something we covered in class. And I go on to write a 10, 15 minute in detail email back to them about what they can do, where they can find the resources, what they missed, all that sort of stuff. And that's 10 and 15 minutes that I really didn't need to commit to that task. I could have easily said to the student, go look at the LMS, go back through the lesson on OneNote, ask a friend, see me in class the next time. And at the end of the day, that would be absolutely fine. I just get in the habit of, I guess, feeling like these tasks are important when they're really not. Again, not for me to do. It's important for the student to get all the work and understand it, but it's not necessarily important for me there and then to tell them. And it's certainly not something urgent, right? We get in the habit of thinking just because someone has emailed us that they're constantly thinking about how we're going to reply to it or when we're going to reply. More often than not, a student has asked you that question, and before the email's even out of their outbox, they've completely forgotten about it. You'll get back to them when you get back to them, and they're not really worried. Look, if a student has a question and they've got an exam the next morning, and it's a year 12 exam, so it's counting towards their ATAR, sure. Now it's suddenly an urgent task, and it's a more important task. I get that. But, a year 9 student who emails you on a Thursday afternoon about what are we doing in next week's class, you don't need to respond to that. That's in the delete quadrant. Okay, so we've categorized all 4 quadrants and we understand the relationship between importance and urgency, and we kind of get which kind of tasks go where. And you'll have an idea in your brain of your personal tasks where they go. But we actually need to action these right now. So take the time, go away for 5-10 minutes, pause the video, don't turn off the video, pause the video and come back and actually put all of these tasks in each quadrant. So all of the tasks that you have to do for your teaching life, go ahead, put them in the do now, do later, delegate or delete category. And when you come back, we'll talk further. Okay, pause the video and off you go. You're still here, aren't you? You're not actually going to do it. Yes, you are. You're actually going to do it. Go now, put your tasks into these 4 categories. I'll be here. Go. You didn't do it, did you? You did? You actually went away, you paused the video and you came back. Good for you. I'm proud of you. If you didn't do it, shame on you, but you're going to still get value from the rest of this. Okay, so we've got our categories and all of our tasks fit into one of them. And now we're going to talk about which group of tasks do you do first. Now, the conventional wisdom and the thing that makes the most intuitive sense is the do now section. They are important and they are urgent, so why not do them first? Well, spoiler alert, I actually don't think you should be doing them first, and they're not what I do first. The ones I actually do first are the delegate tasks. Now, the reason I do the delegate tasks first is because delegating is a super quick task to do. You just send off an email, you forward an email, you make a phone call, you have a conversation, and you let someone else deal with it. The benefit of actually doing this delegation is that all these tasks that have been weighing on you, right? They've been sitting in your email inbox, or they're on sticky notes on your desk, or they've just been sitting there rattling around in your brain. They weigh on you. And it makes you feel like you've got more to do than you actually do. So if you delegate and get all of those tasks out, that's going to free up so much mental clarity and mental space, and you're not going to feel as stressed and overwhelmed about the tasks that you actually have to do. Okay, so naturally the next thing we're going to do are the urgent tasks, the important ones, right? Wrong. I actually don't recommend that you do the do nows next. That's a name that I've given it, do now, but it's actually not this moment. It's just the most important tasks. The ones I recommend you do next are actually the do later tasks, but we're not actually going to do the task. We are just going to schedule those tasks, because similar to the delegate, scheduling something is actually a very quick and easy activity to do, and it won't take you long at all. And it actually makes, again, your brain feel like you don't have as much weighing on you, because even though that task is still there, it still needs to be done. Something like lesson planning. If you delegate that to, say, Thursday afternoon, and you say, that's when I'm going to do it, it kind of feels like you've already done that task. Even though obviously you'll have to do it down the line, it's not really procrastinating if you are scheduling and planning for it. So schedule and plan for all of those do later activities when you think you'll have time to do them. And that's going to make you feel like you're done for now for that section. Right, Mark, so what? We're going to do the delete section before the right now section? Yes and no, because I would actually delete these tasks if they had to be physically deleted. But all I want you to do is look at those tasks that are in the delete section and just ignore them. Feel free to rub them out, right? Literally rub them out, cross them off your to-do list. If they are in the delete section, they don't need to be done. They are not important and they are not urgent, so just get rid of them. If they're life admin stuff that we talked about, put them into a different planner, a different life planner. And either they can be important and urgent there, or urgent and not important, whatever, I don't care. Just get them out of your teacher planner. That section should honestly be blank. Anytime you put anything into it, immediately delete it. And so super counterintuitively, last, but certainly not least, are our do now tasks. We've delegated all of our tasks that we don't need to do, but are urgent. We've scheduled all the tasks that are important, but they're not urgent. And finally, we have the tasks that we need to do because they are urgent and they are important, and we can actually start doing them. You're going to feel less guilty about doing tasks because you don't have those other two quadrants sitting and all the tasks in it sitting over your head and overwhelming you and weighing on you. And you can just get to the stuff that are actually important. Your marking, your reporting, your contacting of parents, or whatever you consider to be important and urgent. And the next stage of this process is to just keep doing it. Stick with it. And pretty soon, like me, you're going to get to a point where you no longer need to really write them down anymore. And you're just going to get to a point where subconsciously, as tasks come in, you're going to commit them to memory in one of these quadrants. Anything that needs to be deleted, you'll just kind of ignore straight away. Anything that needs to get delegated, you'll immediately delegate. Things that are not urgent but are important, you will schedule them. And things that are urgent and important that you really need to do now, you're just going to get them done. This is how I stay kind of stress-free when it comes to work. Now, I still get stressed and I still get anxious, but certainly not as much as most teachers out there, and hopefully you won't be too. So if you're a beginning teacher with all the weight of the world on your shoulders, with all the different activities and tasks that you know that you need to get done, hopefully the system helps. If you're an experienced teacher who's still here in this video who has struggled with time management their entire teaching career, I really hope this helps you as well. If you're interested, by the way, in how I made these graphics for this video, how I wrote live and in different colors and made the different planners, feel free to watch this video on the screen. I use this app called Notability for my lesson planning and pretty much anything graphical that I want to make. I think it's a really amazing tool and I think you'll get a lot out of it as a teacher. So if you've been looking for something to spice up your lesson plans, by the way, feel free to check out Notability. Look, I hope this video helped and I hope you find time management easier in the future. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like it and I'll see you in the next one. That was a weird ending with my hands. Very weird. Why did I do the peace sign? That's not even peace. That's like, okay. Peace.